So this is the absolutely best way to set up your Laravel project to succeed, or at least succeed in code quality, or well, at least succeed a little bit if you put in the work. But this will help you greatly. So you might know this project already. This is a project that I've used recently to show you some LLM stuff. Um, I thought it would be great to just get this project on the configuration level that I wanted to and just take you with me, as well it pretty much misses everything it needs. Luckily it's quite easy. You can follow those steps if you want just by going to this Medium article. You don't actually need to watch the video, but I do recommend watching the video as I can give you a little bit more of the context that you might need. So as you can see, we use Breeze as a starter kit. This doesn't really matter, but one thing is important. Pest is a great testing framework, but that's not all. It also has architectural testing, and that testing is quite valuable to make sure no one pushes stupid code to your code base, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. We're going to use it in a pretty basic vanilla way, but it's still going to provide a lot of value. So first things first, when using Laravel, you usually use pint as your formatter. Pint is great by default, but I do like my pint a little bit more strict. Luckily for me, there's Nuno Maduro, who has created a great strict pint config. Unfortunately for me, it's too strict for my taste. So this is my version of it, which I like the most. All you have to do is copy that, go into your project, and then we want to create a new file, which is called pint.json. We add that, and then we paste the contents. After writing the file, all we need to do is execute vendor bin pint. And after executing, we will see a lot of changes. Mainly, well, it's formatting, and as you can see, my code is formatted horribly. That's great. But also, as you can see up here, we add strict types everywhere, which is important as you want strict typing wherever you can. Otherwise, you will have a lot of type conversions that happen automatically in PHP, and those can screw you over in ways that you, well, you only know the pain after you've had it, but believe me, you want strict types wherever you can. There's a few other things like doing the imports correctly, well, more formatting. I think that's default Pint stuff. Then let's see if we have anything else that's happening. Well, that's the Pint config itself. Yeah, we don't have any great examples of what's happening, but it will do things like automatically moving around functions so that public functions come first and then private functions after. So it just makes sure your code is formatted in a cohesive way, so everyone who sees it will come to know it as the way it is and then know what to do with it. So next step, Pint is great. I think we can just to make sure we're not, so we actually see what's happening. I'm gonna commit everything. So let's just store formatting and set up Pint config. Straight push it to prod. And now we have formatted our code. Next steps are to, well, also format our blade files. We need two things for that. One, there's the blade formatter itself, which is just formatting the blade files in a consistent way. And then there's Rustywind. Rustywind is great as it sorts your Tailwind classes. Now, this could theoretically break your current setup, and that is because Tailwind classes can have precedence over others, dependent on the way they are sorted. I think actually the ones that come first take precedence. I'm not entirely sure about that, but the order matters. So what this does is it puts everything in the same order every time. This fixes the problem I mentioned, but additionally, on top of that, everyone will come to know to the sorting of those classes, and then you more quickly know where to look depending on what you want to change. So let's make sure we have both of those installed. Let's just first install the blade formatter. Luckily I already have that, so we're quick. And now Rusty Wind as well. We already have that as well. Okay, so let's get into the package JSON. Okay, we didn't have the blade formatter, I guess. It's just really quick. NPM can be quick sometimes as well. That's great. I think Rusty Wind 0.22.0 had an issue. I think the Rusty Wind version of this is better, so let's update once. There's one Rusty Wind version where the binary is just a string that says binary will be here after compiling, something like that. Doesn't work great if you want to actually sort Tailwind classes. So we will need to wait for the npm update to go through. But in the meantime, let's see. In the package JSON, you can add scripts similar to your composer JSON. And there's two scripts I want to add, and that's format and format check. Format check is just the check version of the formatting that I do in the command above. So you can see I'm taking all blade files from the resources folder and down below, and I'm just writing everything with Rusty Wind. I do need to do this weird escaping thingy, because if I don't put those into quotes, for some reason, in some projects, blade formatter doesn't do what it should do. So let's copy this. We should be done here by now. Yes, we are. We add a comma at the end, and then we paste this in. Important to not have a comma at the very end, because JSON will complain. And with that npm. But now we can actually do run npm run format. And then everything will be executed. As you can see, the Tailwind classes are even sorted in PHP files, so it just goes over the whole folder and it will see Tailwind classes and sort them. Doesn't matter where they are. We have more Tailwind class sorting in our blade file and some blade formatting down here. Additionally, yeah, we have some blade formatting here. But as you can see, I've already used the blade formatter, so there's not a lot of changes that actually happen. For now, I want to actually discard those changes. Let's discard them, because I want to show you something else as well. So we can run format. We can also now run format check. Format check will hopefully fail now. Yeah, you see. So we do have the error messages of what can be formatted. So in our CI, we can then use the script to make sure everything is how it should be. But now, in the composer JSON, we have already installed pint and configured it. So now let's add scripts to our composer JSON. In the composer JSON, we do have a scripts object as well. So we paste our formatting scripts into here, and now we can run composer format, and we'll not only run pint, but also run our npm scripts. So now you can see the npm scripts are there as well, which is great. So let's again commit this. It's just again a chore, set up and configure composer and npm script. And we push that. Next step. One thing that is not great at formatting, but great at increasing your code quality is rector. Rector is a tool for automatically doing things like keeping your code base compatible with the newest PHP version. But it has a lot of other great rules as well that you can apply, like doing laravel stuff, using the more laravel type functions. That's a little bit of a weird term, but in laravel there's functions that people use idiomatically, and you should use them as well. And rector can see when you do not do that sometimes, and then automatically fix that for you. So let's require rector first things first. It's a def dependency. We seem to already have that. It could be that I will have to do some manual updating. I hope we do not, but we will see in a second. There we go. I think we're good, but I'm not sure. I shouldn't have installed that as well. Okay, let's see. We are in the composer JSON. Do we have larastan 2? I think we need... Do we need... Yeah, we do need version 3, which means... Let's see, do we have phpstan? Oh, that's horrible. I do have to do a lot of manual updating. Let's see. But it's not too bad. Let's just push the major versions up. Right. So 3.0 at least. Okay, there's already 3.7. Let's use that. We do have larastan 3. That's good. I think we can run composer update now. That is not correct. So what do we need to do? Yes, we need to also update the rector laravel rules. They should be version 2 then. There's one more. Okay, pest plugin faker. So I think this needs version 3 as well. Oh, it could be that those plugins all need version 3 now. So let's just try that. As you can see, updating with Composer can be a little bit of a pain sometimes, but there we go. We're good now. And now we do have the latest versions of everything. So after installing both of those dependencies, we need a new file. That is the rector.php file. So just create a new file, rector.php. Just a quick explanation of what this does. So first we configure the paths that we want to run rector in. So we do have a app directory, that's great. We have a bootstrap directory, that's great. Config lang, we don't have that and we don't need it, so we can remove it. The public folder, the resources folder, we do have that as well. Routes and tests, that's all things we have. Running with PHP sets will run all PHP sets up to the version defined in your composer JSON. So currently we do have 8.2, let's make that 8.4. So we're going to use everything up to PHP 8.4. There's a few prepared sets, so this is just a combination of multiple rules. That code quality and early return are the ones that I like to use. And then here's the Laravel set list of Laravel rules that we run. All we have to do now, which will probably be quite slow, is running vendor bin rector. Yes, unfortunately my Xdebug is running in the background, so this will be slow maybe. Let's see. It's faster after running for the first time, I promise. And it's also worth the time it takes. I promise that too. But it can take a while sometimes, especially when running it for the first time. Which is quite a... there we go. I've just started to make up excuses. Let's see what it did. Okay, for example, it doesn't like me using empty. Now this might not make any sense because we only need the first rule, but that's things we can clean up then. It uses, as I told you, for example, the throw if helper, which we didn't use. So we wrote more lines than we would have needed. And this is the more laravel way, which is also a lot cleaner. So that's great. It also has seen we use a useless return. So let's just return the thing we created above. That's great as well. It made sure we typecast to the correct types if we're not sure what the type is. That also looks just great. Another throw if thingy. It also automatically adds the override attribute, which just makes sure that if you may override something in the future that doesn't exist anymore, you will get an exception. So just make sure your class structure is correct. We have added types to our strings because we know these are our strings. Yeah, it fixed some other things. Looks good to me. Some more typecasting looks good to me as well. It's the rector PHP. It automatically turns functions, those closures, they could be short closures, to short closures, which also feels a lot better in many cases. And there we go. For example, we didn't use the case, so it removed that in the function. So it just cleans up your code. It doesn't format it, so after running it, you can run composer format again, and then your code is formatted as well, and then you can just push it to production. Well, you shouldn't because, well, rector does clean up things, but it can also break things. So always after using it, you should make sure everything works still. So draw run rector. Well, actually we do setup and run rector. Let's commit that, push it. So there's at least one more thing that I know of. Okay, it's actually two things. That's great. larastan. We've already updated this in our dependencies, as you may have seen me do. We go to larastan, we use version 3, that's perfect. And we now need a phpstan.neon. I think I should at least have that, do I? I do. So let's see if my config is correct. Well, not quite. The base larastan extension is what we need. So when requiring larastan in Composer, we also install phpstan by default, which is great because now we can use phpstan, which is what we configure, but larastan is the thing of phpstan that we need the most. phpstan itself is great as well, but larastan makes it usable for Laravel. The bleeding edge config is pretty much, it tells phpstan to always take the breaking changes. We have a composer.log, so whenever we update phpstan, we get the latest changes and we have fixed the version of phpstan to that version. So it's okay to actually take the breaking changes, and instead of waiting for the next major version of phpstan, just incorporating them, because we can still version manage those breaking changes, and they're not going to break user code, they're just breaking our CI at worst, and that's okay. So we can just fix the issues that arise. The users will never have an issue with them. So yeah, that's why I do like to use the bleeding edge config. Let's see if we have issues. Probably we do have a lot. So vendor bin phpstan. Let's see what's happening. Oh, that looks horrible because of xdebug. phpstan can also be quite slow when running xdebug in combination, but okay, we're not that slow actually. There's a few issues. So we do have in the fix JSON if broken action, there is a validation exception. It's never thrown in the try block. Well, this is actually, I think, a fail analysis, but let's see. Fix JSON if broken action, line 23. There is definitely a validation exception that is thrown, but it isn't recognized. That happens sometimes. It's not perfect, but let's see something else. Transform string form string to array action. There you want to go. Line 31, there's an issue. It is the array with null. The result is null at this point. Well, that's actually correct. So for some reason, we do have an issue here, which I don't know what rector did. So it definitely broke something, and that's great. phpstan found an issue. And that is what we actually like it doing. So I'm gonna go back to this later and see what the issue is. Yeah, I will have to look at that, unfortunately. Or fortunately, because I now know things are happening. For example, in JSON 2 PHP, line 65. Haha. He actually also doesn't know that this is not correct. The average is not always unnullable. It actually can be nullable if there's no averages at all at that moment. So, yeah. So, phpstan is not perfect, but it will show you a lot of, I'd say, it's hints that something could be wrong. And then you will have to check for yourself. But it's good to see these potential problems in your code. And you will be able to see them better if you use a lot of types. That's why we use strict types, and why we also like to add type hints everywhere where we can. So there's, well, at least this tip as well. For your composer JSON, we add another script, right? So composer JSON, the script area, we want to analyze easily and not use vendor bin phpstan. So there we go. Vendor bin phpstan analyze. Just go composer, analyze, and then the same thing we just did happens again, which is great. Finally, there is pest. I told you to use pest, and there's a great reason to do so. Architecture testing is probably my favorite thing because it really easily does a lot of things for you. I've already created an arch test here, but you can create one yourself. Just create a new PHP file, and then we will see, do we have everything here? Let's delete this. And these are all our arch tests. Now you have to make sure that these can be executed. In your PHP unit.xml, there you define the tests that run. So we have unit feature, and there we go. There's no configuration for our arch test at the moment, so it won't run. So instead of, well, we could configure the PHP unit file, but we can just move it into the feature folder, and then it will run as well. So now when we run pest parallel, our pest tests are executed, which should work if we did have our dev server running. So now let's run pest parallels again. There's still one failing. That's great. The arch test already worked. So in PHP to JSON line 32, we're using the MD5 function, which is in the security preset and shouldn't be used. But in this context, it's actually okay because we just use MD5 to create a hash for cache. So, well, we could fix that or make an exclusion from the Arch test, but as you can see, it found a potential security issue in our code. Again, we don't want to manually type a lot of vendor bin. So again, go into your composer JSON. And then in these scripts, all we need to do is paste this test command. And now when running composer test, our testing suite will run, and it works great, except for the one fail test, of course. That did work great. But with all that being said, that's all there is to it currently. I like to set up my CI based on those things. Maybe I'll create a video on how to set up the CI, but I think we're good for now. We're already at 26 minutes. I don't want to bore you for too long. Use this, and well, if you have any feedback on what to improve, or maybe things you do to improve code quality without actually working for it, please tell me in the comments below, and well, see you next time maybe, or soon.